So we are joined now by long-time friend of the show, one of the very first interviews we ever did, Lottie, the Tank Whisperer. Lottie, welcome back to Totally Tanked.
Thank you for having me.
So it's been a few years since you've been on the show. Can you tell us what you've been up to in the last few years?
Oh wow. Yeah, that is a long story. Obviously the last time we spoke, I was still working at the Australian Armor and Artillery Museum. That is no longer the case. Myself and my now business partner, Peter Cordell, we resigned from the museum and we have been traveling both around Australia and internationally fixing tanks for our new business, Tank Side Assist. So we went all the way down to Victoria, New South Wales. We even stopped by Canberra just momentarily. One of our clients is there, and yeah, we started predominantly with Centurion restorations. We've done full Meteor 27-liter V12 Meteor engines that are inside the Centurions. We full stripped those down, put them back together, get them running, full nut and bolt restorations. So we've been doing that. And we've also been doing quite a bit of work internationally in Canada and Japan. So
Fantastic.
that's the points.
Can I ask if your Canberra client owns a replica Stug or is it someone different?
No, they're definitely someone different. They've only
Okay.
got the one tank. It's not in Canberra, but he works in Canberra. His tank is currently, where did he last leave it? I'm pretty sure it's in New South Wales. But yeah, it's a Centurion. No significant history from what we gathered from it, but it is a proper B barrel, like pretty much the setup of what they would have looked like in Vietnam, with the Australians, of course. And yeah, I managed to get the full turret suite on that going, so it's got full stab controls and infrared, which is really good.
Wow. So, I mean, the skill set you must have because you're moving now from just getting old engines going and KV2s in T34s and the like up to very complex, quite modern electronics. How's that transition going for you?
Uh, Not too bad, really. Peter, of course, who I was apprenticed to when I was at the museum, like I mentioned before, he's my business partner. So the engine side, he's never been phased by an engine in his life, I don't think. So I got a lot of training from him. So the engine side's probably the more difficult side, but we really have no issues with that. And even today in our current workshop here in Cairns, um, because we've decided to settle down in a stationary spot for the majority of our now restoration projects rather than traveling around. We did that for 2 years, and that was a bit much. But the more, I suppose, complicated stuff like the gunnery system on Centurion, uh, once you sort of muddle it through your head a little bit and do one, they're not too hard. There's certainly more complicated systems. Anything that's got a computer, don't bother asking me. That's beyond the scope of what we deal with. There's far smarter people than me that do that. But we do a lot of the electromechanical. There we go, tongue tied. Electromechanical engineering and the hydraulics, if the turrets have those. Yeah.
Fantastic. So you've got your YouTube channel, Lottie the Tank Whisperer.
Yes.
Yep, which is a wealth of information, people wanting to see you restoring vehicles. Now, you've launched a podcast, which for our podcast audience will be quite thrilling. Can you tell us about Turret Monsters?
Yeah. So Turret Monsters is it's basically what I've always felt was missing within the community, though the wider global community of tank dorks, as we put them. And that is basically we want a one-stop shop place where people can get like their weekly news and community feedback just to sort of get more grounded if you're entering the space or if you're long-term tank fan and you're coming back into it and you have no idea what's going on, what events are going on, when's Tank Fest, when's Osama Fest, etc., etc. We basically just do a weekly podcast now where not only do we get the feedback in from the wider community of tank dogs, but we put that into a palatable news segment essentially. So that's I suppose the quick bit of it, but we do also touch on to just other random stuff that people want us to talk about. So the last few episodes we were talking about movies and video games and all sorts of media, just like where can people in the community find cool stuff to look at outside of just museums. And we have already started to get guests on. So we would love to have both of you on as well, because it's our tagline is basically it's for the tank community by the tank community.
I just like that. I just like that you've decided to lean in hard into the girls and Panzer
Oh, yeah.
animes and so forth. I've been trying to promote that into the tank world of listeners, and I think I'm glad that you and Ted are both joining in with that, and the way you went through the movie and all the various bits and pieces of how they reference real life stuff in the show. So it's not just Japanese girls driving around tanks. It's actually got some leanings into the historical side of things.
Oh, absolutely. And it's the only, I really want to, next time on my trip to Japan, which I've actually been working with quite a lot of Japanese um, on their sort of stuff. But for those who don't know, Japan actually has really strict laws regarding bringing any armored vehicle into the country. I believe there's only one or two in private hands. So helping them actually help keep their vehicles in running condition has been something that we've been really privileged to do. But the only way they can really get their fix for tank related stuff is they actually make one-to-one scale replica tanks, and all of them, I believe, 99.99% of them are straight up just copies of the Girls and Panzer ones, because that's what led them to get into it. So without Girls and Panzer, there would not be as significant a Japanese contingent of tank dogs in the world as there are. So Girls and Panzer is fantastic.
So what you're saying is that the tanks you see at the Girls and Panzer events, where live play events, are actually one-to-one scale models.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm friends with a handful of them, and there's a few sort of like secret ones which have sort of like made their way into the country because they are replicas and not armored vehicles, so they could bypass those laws. And yeah, all of them are replicas. I do believe in private hands, tank wise, there is only one running tank, and that is a type. Is it a Type 95? Oh, completely lost track which one it is.
Right.
Pretty sure it's a Type 95 cargo, which is in private hands. That was the one that was at Bovington for a number of years. And it was recently purchased by a non-profit organization, which, full disclosure, I am a member of. I'm sort of like their international, whatever you whatever you would call it. So yeah, so there's only one official tank in private hands in Japan that is running, with soon to be two, possibly three, also part of the same group. But all the others that you see are one-to-one scale replicas, which is just amazing. I love that community. It's great.
Wow, that's insane. So another question for you is, with you and Ted on opposite sides of the world, how did you two meet and to collaborate about to do a weekly podcast on tanks?
So that came about because of my trips to Canada. Again, full disclosure, I am a member of the Canadian Tank Museum. When I started visiting the Canadian Tank Museum, they were just called the Ontario, what was it? Yeah, Ontario Military Museum. I've completely forgotten them now because, yeah, they are now officially the Canadian Tank Museum. But they started out as a ferret club, and they've been slowly sort of building up. And I went to the US just to visit some friends and sort of pulled a few of my contacts, including Nicholas Moran, the chieftain, and said, "Hey, what do you actually recommend I do while I'm here?" Uh, and he suggested go to the Canadian Tank Museum and have a look at them. So I reached out, shot them an email, and just said, "Hey, look, I'm going to be in the area. I love getting involved with events and communities, and I'm going to be there for, more than a couple of days. I'm actually going to be there for a week and a half. Do you guys want any help? So they went and did some internet sleuthing. They found all of my YouTube videos. And one thing that they do really well is they have a collection of Gulf War vehicles that were all used in the Gulf War. The vast majority of them are CVRTs of all different shapes and sizes. And they get the crewmen who served on those vehicles, like number to number, and they get them to come over and drive or operate their own vehicles. But they're short on a few drivers. So they said, well, you've already proven you've got all of this, expert knowledge and know-how, and you've worked on, I think at the time I'd already worked on 3 CVRTs, both the diesel and petrol variations. So they went, hey, we need someone to sort of fill a gap. What do you
And
think?
we can vouch for what a fast CVRT driver you are.
Yeah, absolutely. You know firsthand. So
Yeah. My ribs have never been the same again. But
so yeah, they saw all that sort of stuff and they went, groovy, come along. They gave me a little trailer to sleep in and everything. They in the back of the museum section, because I went for Aquino, which is a 3-day event, very much akin to both Tank Fest and Osama Fest, which both of you are familiar with. So they knew I had experience with such events, and they were more than happy to open the door to me. And while I was there, not only did I become basically a member of the family, but I encountered Ted. And in subsequent years, we've grown that sort of rapport. And last year, he is working with a video game company called Armative Studios, who build Steel Aces, which is a sort of World of Tanks / War Thunder sort of tie-in. And they said, hey, would you like to, help us out with that? So we did a number of videos with them. And then on the side, Ted and I were sort of talking to a number of people at Aquino, and we said, why don't we do a podcast to bring this community together? Because we just loved encountering so many different people from across the world. We had of course, the British veterans there from the UK. We had Ted from the US. We had obviously all the Canadians, being that we were in Canada, me being an Australian. We even had a few Japanese reenactors pop over. We were just getting people left, right, and center. We said, well, how about we try and set something up so we can give all these people somewhere to go to get just a quick, news recap. And then if they really want to, we'll actually bring people on, because we found the Canadian Tank Museum, like I mentioned before, started out as a ferret club, just a ferret club, nothing grandiose, whatever. And just
that's the armored scout vehicle.
yeah, armored scout vehicle. Yeah, no, they
Not the small weasels that you put.
no, they had a small pet sanctuary, and they thought they're a little too fragile. Let's upgrade to the vehicles. So yes, the armored scout car, and they've just through the years, I think, got like 30, possibly even 40 years of just hard work, and now they have become a Goliath in the space of doing tank events. They have, I believe they just announced another event that they're doing every year. So I think they're up to 5 events per year, but Aquino is still being the largest that they do. And when we go back, because again, it's a 3-day event, we all go back at the end of, day 1 and day 2 and even day 3. And there's copious amounts of alcohol involved. We all sit around fires, and once the general public is
John,
away.
it does sound like they have something that we can actually contribute to there, right? We don't have any of your mechanical or driving skills, but if they need somebody to come along and drink with them,
Drink beer. Yeah,
we're all
we're the guys.
Absolutely. And because, myself, and now I've brought Peter along, and we've actually brought in a couple of other Australians, just to get involved with the community. So Australians are quite loved over there.
They just don't know us yet, but yeah, that's okay.
No, they will though. I think we will find a space for you. So yeah, we sort of all sitting around the campfire, getting quite drunk, And well, let's try and help other museums get to this stage, because there are Swedish museums, Swiss museums, Asian museums of all sorts everywhere who could absolutely get to this stage, but no one knows who they are because they don't have that the reach that you might get from a generalized Western audience. So that's what we're doing. We've already got a few in the pipeline, I believe. As of filming today, we haven't done the interview yet, but we're expecting to get the director of one of the Swedish museums onto the podcast and basically just give them a platform, be like, hey, look, here's a community. What do you want to tell them? What do you have planned for, late 25, 26, and 27 in the future? And they can tell us exactly what they're doing, and people can make up their minds from there. So that's basically what we're doing. We're just a mouthpiece for the community.
I mean, that's great about Sweden because I mean, as a country, they're probably outside of the great powers, the biggest tank builders of the smaller countries, and they've done a lot of interesting things. And certainly, we get a lot of listeners from Sweden. They're probably just right behind Australia, US, UK, Canada. But yeah, I would love to see more stuff about what they're up to in Sweden.
Yeah, and that's all we're facilitating for everyone. So yeah, and of course we'd love to have like you on. You're part of the community, whether you like it or not. If you have an interest, passing or not, in tanks, then you're part of the Tank Dork community.
Yeah, we're definitely tank dorks, and we'd love to come on the show whenever you got space for us. But
Not a problem.
so you're on all the podcast platforms as Turret Monsters.
Yep. So our main hub is on Facebook. We do have a link tree, and we're on Spotify and Apple at the moment. We are sort of gearing up. We've got our own Patreon as well if people want to sort of support. Basically, all the money for that comes back into the podcast, just allowing us to upgrade our equipment and the like.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're on most major platforms. People
I'll
can reach out.
And I'll say that there is an RSS feed. I've managed to find it and put it into my queue, so I can get that directly without having to go through the billionaires.
Absolutely. Brilliant.
So, but no video yet for Turret Monsters, Lottie.
There are video on the Patreon. We're still, I think, as of filming with you guys, we're only up to episode 7, I believe. So, but we do one a week, so we're chugging along quite nicely. I don't think 7's out yet because
no, you're only up to episode 4 at the moment.
Yeah, because we put them out sort of like a week ahead.
Yeah, I've got to say you're going hard for a weekly podcast about tanks. So I applaud you, and I hope you manage to be able to maintain the rage. I think when people talk to John and I about it, we'll say, well, our livers probably wouldn't like us doing a weekly podcast, so that's why we stick with monthly.
That's true. Yeah, we don't drink on our podcast, but no apparent reason. I think it's just because we're just so involved in talking about it, we forget to drink. But perhaps that is something we'll have to make an exception for when you guys.
I do like the description of the name of the website for Turret Monsters and how you described whenever you get into an armored vehicle and something bites you or you drop something and it goes down to the bottom of the tank and it'll never be found again. That was the turret monster taking a bite out of you. And the artwork you've got for it, did somebody draw that artwork for you?
Yeah. So that was a fantastic guy. He goes by Deco Noir online. He's very much into that like 90s, 1950s sort of horror art style that you find on like, Mars Attacks or any of those like groovy horror movies, B movie horror movie stylings. And I just love that, and the idea of like Tara Monster. So the tank in that picture is actually a tank that we did a restoration for and gave it to him as a guide. And then we said, look, just put something cool coming out of it. And that became the Tara Monsters. I just love that sort of Deco Noir, which is why his name is Deco Noir. I love that styling. So yeah.
I've got a drawing from my daughter of a tank, and I'm planning to send through to you guys because you made that call out the other week of saying, send us a picture of what your kids draw as a tank, and I'll send hers through. So
Absolutely. That would be marvelous.
I've always we've sort of fallen off it, but when we did our first, few episodes, we all often talked about whether a tank was something that looked like a child would draw, because some tanks and T-34 Sherman are very much covered by what children draw, and others aren't. So, how many have you had through, and what are they? What is there any winners?
At this stage, we haven't had a ton. We've actually had a lot from the Canadian Tank Museum community, all of their kids. And I think it's a little skewed towards actually being more professional because they are all kids of tank dorks. So
Right.
they've just sat down in front of a tank by the looks of it, and they've sketched their favorite. But most of them seem to really love that Sherman art style of just the body has to be significantly larger than the turret, but still proportional. It's interesting. So the Sherman seems to be the sort of go-to.
Now, a question for the future for you. No, and this is the future of tanks. I was thinking about this as somebody who's worked on tanks and is talking about them. The weight of modern tanks is getting up there, the 80 plus ton range, especially the modern Western tanks. What do you see as a capability that how they're going to be able to drop that weight to something that is going to be manageable for the roads, the bridges, and logistics, and just the vehicles themselves? For the future of tanks, what are your thoughts on that?
To reduce the weight? Quite frankly, I don't think they will.
You don't think
it's
just keep piling on more and more stuff and make it heavier and heavier?
Yeah, I suppose it's a bit of a fallacy, but the majority of tanks will exert a ground pressure less than your family car. The damage that they do to roads comes about because of their steering with metal tracks, just having that sort of pivoting, grinding motion on particularly asphalt and dirt tracks. That's what destroys it. I'm sure you're familiar with Osama Fest. All the damage that you see is in the corners. That's where all the damage is done. On, say, a straight highway, driving over them, obviously you would have issues on a grander scale just because of the significant weight of the vehicles. That being said, if they are designed to hold a semi truck, they push up, into hundreds of tons now, especially here in Australia. I don't think a tank is going to cause that much more damage in a straight line. On smaller roads, yeah, they're going to cause damage, but I don't think they're going to worry about that. It's as a mitigating factor. What they will probably do, I've seen it happen in Canada, is they are looking at experimental tracks, like the one piece or anywhere between 1 and 3 piece rubber track system.
The rubber band tracks, yeah.
Yeah, so if you go to the Canadian Tank Museum, they actually have it's a highly modified 113 platform, completely different engine, completely different driveline and all that, but it's basically just think of a limousine 113. The name escapes me at the moment, but it uses a hush track system. And that thing, I've driven it. It's fantastic. It's groovy. You can barely hear it. It's amazing. But then you have to think of the logistics of actually changing the track on something like that. Track bashing is a difficult task at the best of times, but when you have a track which is essentially a one and done, once that track is destroyed, that's it. You got to get another one, and there's no real recouping that sort of cost. So I don't believe they will be reducing the weight of tanks necessarily, but I do think they are going to have to take a good hard look at how they go in the off-road sort of department. And the Ukraine war has very much shown the world just how useless they can be in the hands of people who don't know how to operate them in rough terrain. When we did a lot of our work in Victoria, specifically at the South Gippsland Tank Adventures, we were operating daily in what we call Russian mud, which is essentially 3 meters deep of just clay. And a vehicle like Centurion does amazing. They have these really hard grouser style metal track links, which have fallen out of favor worldwide, but can be found on vehicles like T72 to a kind of lesser extent. It's not as harsh. Something like that goes through easy peasy, provided you don't do anything dumb. But something like a leopard actually struggles because of that sort of the rubber pads on them. They just slip and slide. So it's they just need to find exactly where they're going to be fighting. But again, Ukraine is a sort of, it's an interesting cultural phenomenon for tank conflicts. I think most people take the wrong ideas and concepts from the war, not realizing that most of the combatants there aren't necessarily doing things justifiably from a mechanical sympathy standpoint, if that makes sense.
No, that's an interesting insight. Lottie, have you got a favorite tank at this point in time?
Oh, well, why don't you just ask me what my favorite child is? Not that I have any, but
Yeah.
at this point, I am very much a lover of the Australian Cruiser series of vehicles.
Okay.
And that's probably for one very good, interesting reason, and that is we've actually taken delivery of one,
Oh,
of an AC3. So our current,
It's not Clive Palmer's, is it?
it is.
oh.
But you didn't hear it from me. So it's one of those
Are you going to get it running?
that is the idea. So we will be starting to give people an insight onto that. We've taken delivery of both the AC3 and the Centurion ARV. Now, part of the way that we took acquisition of it is because he's establishing a museum. Now,
I think make sure you get paid up front.
well, see that's the thing. So he has paid for all the transport for these vehicles. However, the the contract that we have written up is we will be actually funding it through the community. And that is because whilst it is in our possession, which will be for a significant period of time, and even into its time at the museum, it will be fully uh, publicly accessible. So even right now, if people are curious, they can reach out to us and come and look at these vehicles. We aren't barring anyone. These are for the public. So we have started, we're working with Far North Queensland Legacy, so a veterans program here in Australia, specifically Far North Queensland Legacy, because they are sort of broken up into their own little regional sections. So Far North Queensland Legacy is helping us out. We will be taking it to their events, and they'll be helping us make it a public event for everyone to attend. And through them and our own charity, which as of right now isn't up, but it will be called History Engage. People can donate specifically not only to get bits and pieces from these particular vehicles. We've taken a leaf out of the Armor and Cav collection in the US in Fort Benning / Fort Moore, because they've changed their name, I think, 3 times at this point. So I do believe it's Fort Benning at the time of speaking, but that could change again. God knows where they are. But they do funded restorations through the public, and they recently did a Yag Panther, and doing it through them, you can actually get a little vial of tank rust, as it were, which is amazing just how much people want from these tanks. So that's what we're offering people, is a chance to come and see the vehicles. Their names will be engraved into a plaque inside the vehicle, so they'll have a direct hand in restoring these vehicles. We just really needed to find a way to get these inside. and as I'm sure you're aware that they were sitting outside for a significant period of time. So it's a different way of doing things, but we've seen through Bovington and other museums that there seems to be a high degree of interest in getting public funding for tank restorations. So it's a little bit different to what we normally do. Normally, we just do straight up restorations for clientele, which the doors are still open. However, we are looking to move our operations overseas in a couple of years. So if you really want to get in now. um, we just take the money upfront from clients and do restorations, which you can see on my YouTube channel. So we
Yeah.
don't hide anything.
So just out of intense interest on my part, with the Aussie Cruiser, are you planning to restore the original power pack or just put something else in to drive it?
So at the current time, for those who don't know, AC3 Thunderbolt, there are only two in existence. The other one is in the Australian War Memorial, which we are going to go and pillage some data from them. We've already talked to them. We're doing a lot of
when you come down to Canberra, give us a yell.
Absolutely.
Love to catch up with you. Maybe come out, and if we can get an invite out to the War Centre with you.
Yeah, it's difficult. Let me tell you, I won't get too much into it, but the Australian War Memorial know me by my full name.
Look, off camera, I can give you some tips on dealing with them, but let's not record that.
Yeah, too easy. But yeah, so the AC3 we have obviously acquired it. It's in our workshop. It, as of speaking right now, we haven't done anything to it. It is missing its gun mantlet, which is of significant importance, and we'll get back to that really quickly. But it's running one of the three Cadillac engines. I highly, highly, highly doubt that we will get the original Cloverleaf set up for it, purely because getting three Cadillac V8s is actually a fairly easy exercise. However, there's two ways that we could do it. We have access to, if we wanted to purchase it, a Mark One transfer case. For those who don't know, the Mark Ones have one engine in the front and two engines in behind it, and they go to a central power driveline. But that is only exclusive to the Mark One. The Mark Threes went to the Cloverleaf, which is essentially one engine on top of two engines that go around a central crankcase. Getting one of those original crankcases is impossible. We've talked to the experts on this. It's impossible. So we probably won't do that. If we really wanted to sort of get like quote unquote kind of original, we could do it up as a single, like the AC1. What we're probably going to do is just replace it with something more modern, because in my experience, and this might sound, heathenous to tank purists, 90% of the population do not care, nor do they know when things are different. I have had the pleasure of working on 4 different Panzer Mark IVs in the world. Only one of those had the original driveline in it. No one could tell the difference. One of them had a turbo diesel in it, and people couldn't tell what was inside of it. So again, purists might, try and say something. People don't know. They honestly don't know. And it's going to be hidden. The engine deck on NAC 1 and 2 is a pretty hard thing to look inside of. So we'll get something more modern. It'll sound right, at least to the majority of the population. But everything else we want original, because the outside is original, the turret is original. We are looking to do an interesting bit of sort of thing. And again, we've sort of spoken to the majority of the people who are quote unquote experts in this field. Because it doesn't have a turret mantlet, and we have access to not one but two 25-pounders, we may
Oh,
go in the double dab.
We're gonna go for the double dab, yeah. So it's, I'll tell you what's wrong and what's right with it. what is right off the bat is we've got the 25 pounders. We don't have a mantlet, so we are going to have to create a mantlet, which is quite an expensive bit of kit, because we're basically going to have to copy the one at the Australian War Memorial, and we can modify it. We're going to have to scan it and then put it into a program. So that's something that's going to have to happen anyway. May as well do the double. It just looks infinitely cooler, and we know people are actually going to want to give money to a project like that because it's going to be a one-off.
So just for our audience who might not follow Australian cruises as much as we do, there was historically a mock-up made with the double 25 pounders, so mostly to test out fitting 17 pounder, I think, but it existed, so it's not like you're just
it existed. We're not pulling a world of tanks. It did exist. The only thing, technically speaking, wrong with the setup is it was used on a platform called the E1, which, surprisingly enough, still exists. It's a highly modified Mark I chassis. It's, if you could call it, it's the original AC1, but everyone just calls it the E1, and it's still in the possession of John Belfield, who was the previous owner of this particular Mark III. Now, we actually ran it by him, and if my justification for it is if the purists really want it, we could at some point just get the Mark III that the AC3 that we've got and the E1 that he's got, and we could just do a turret swap, and then you'd have an E1 which is perfectly reasonable. We can do a lot of swapping around, so we're not doing anything that can't be undone. And it's just so cool. Like, come on, 220 pounders in an AC3 is just, it's amazing. And I even ran it by, I won't put words in his mouth, but the chieftain did say it was a cool idea. So, it's.
Look, he's not the sole arbiter of cool in the world of tanks. I mean, he's close to it, but he's not the only one.
Exactly. And this is a fundraising project. So what the community says, the community does. And unless, like, I'm happy to do a poll. Like, if everyone wants me to just do a global poll, I'll do it. But that's not a problem. But I can guarantee 80% of the population is going to be like, duh, put the 225s in. For the quick recap reason why 225 pounders were inside of an AC3 turret, it's the correct turret. We've got the correct turret. We're not doing any fibbing with that. Is because they were trying to gear up for the AC4 prototype, which has the 17 pounder in it. At that period, they didn't know if they shoved a 17 pounder in, would the turret ring of an AC3 turret actually handle the recoil, because that's what they're going to shove the 17 pounder into. So before they went to all the engineering of putting a 17 pounder inside a turret, which is a significant challenge, but well, let's just shove 225 pounders in, and the math works out to be something along the lines of it has the same recoil potential of 1.5 17 pounders. So if you can discharge 225 pounders and it doesn't blow up or blow the turret ring off, you're right as rain. So they did it. That's the quick, nitty gritty story behind that. So it has historical precedent, and that is what we are gearing up to do. This AC3 has its original gearbox, so it's got its original driveline. The only thing that is, I can almost guarantee won't be original, is the engine, which again, I'm going to sound heathenist, but who cares?
Look, I think there is an argument for actually hearing the sound of the original engine if it's possible, but it's not worth not getting the tank running, if it needs a different engine, and particularly a more modern engine that isn't going to break down every 5 minutes.
Exactly. And it's not one of these cases where it's like trying to, hunt down a Maybach engine, which is, just the cost of money. This is a specially designed 3-to-1 transfer case that is designed to hold 3 Cadillac V8s. That is, if someone, again, I'll throw it out to the community. If they want to fund, I'm sure the designs are out there. It's been created once. This is always what I fall back onto when it comes to tank restorations. It's been done before in the past, which means it can be done again. You just need to find either the time, resources, or all of the above to do it again. So we could make a one-to-one full recreation of an AC3 down to the rivet and nut and bolt. It comes down to the resources, time, and how much money people are willing to throw at it. So again, I put it out to the community. If they want to fund a genuine engineering recreation of the transfer case, we'll do it. It's not outside the realms of possibility.
Fair enough. Okay, and so if people want to get involved, Turret Monsters on Facebook is the best place to start.
Yep, Turret Monsters on Facebook. I am also going to be doing, obviously, the majority of the filming, because this is all going to be filmed, will be on my YouTube, and that is both for the AC3 and the Centurion ARV that we have in our workshop, among other things. But yeah, so we'll probably be giving like weekly updates on the actual progress charity-wise on the podcast, because that is news for the tank community. But if you want to see in-person physical updates, go check out my YouTube channel. So there's all
Lottie
sorts
Tank
of
Whisperer, for those who don't,
yes.
who haven't caught it before.
So yeah, and
Brilliant.
the other one is the Centurion ARV, which has significant history within the Australian tank community. So we can talk about that later.
Fantastic. All right, Lottie, we're going to have to let you go for now, but we really appreciate you taking the time and talking to us all about what you've been up to, and we really wish you all the best, and look forward to many more episodes of Turret Monsters and your YouTube channel.
Too easy. Yeah, no, thank you very much for having me on, and of course, you guys are always welcome onto our podcast.